So back to our code here. Let's go back to our main. I'm going to close this down for now so we don't have this clutter there. So here is where we are going to start putting everything together. But remember, first of all, we have all of these widgets that we need to retrieve them in order for us to be able to do things to them, right? So first thing we're going to do is get all the text views. In fact, we're going to have a text view that's going to be inside here, and we should have, let's make sure that we have the text view, because I don't remember adding any text view inside our, nope, I don't have a text view inside. Huh. What are the odds? Let me go and add a text view just like that. So let's see, this text view here will have an ID. I'm going to call this question text view, enter, and I want this to be wrap content, also wrap content. And while I'm here, I'm going to change the size to about 18. We may change that later, but that's fine for now. It's very good. And I am going to also get rid of the text. It says text like there. For now, I'm just going to say, hello there. This is where we are going to add something. It's a lot of gibberish. What's new? There we go. So we have our text view there. So now we have the question ID and we can reference that in our code. So in our code, I'm going to come up here, say private. I have two text views. If you look here, I have this counter one and the inside text view there. So we need to get those two. Text view, I'm going to call the first one question text view, and private text view. Oops, text view, it should be question counter text view. Continuing here, I'm going to say button. There's true button. Let's import our button there. So private image button. It's going to be, oops, what did I do here? This is not the true button like that. There we go. So our image button here, it's going to be next button, and then private, another image button, prev button, and I think I should also add another button here, false button. Very good. Now we have all our widgets as instance variables here. So the next thing I need to do here, actually, I'm going to say private create an int. I'm going to call this current question index. It's going to start at 0 like that. Okay, so initializing this index that is going to be a counter for all of our questions. And the next thing I'm going to do also, I'm going to say private. I'm going to create a list, right? Type that's going to be of question. Okay, call this question list. We'll use that in a second there. In fact, we already have that, so I can just get rid of this as such. So now we have a question list and it's equal to that. All right, so that looks very good. Okay, so inside main, we're going to go ahead and connect everything. So I'm going to start with next button, find by ID, r.id that next button, then prev, find by ID, d.prev button, then true, okay, false. Let's see what else do we need to do. Let's go ahead. We got true, false button. Now let's go question counter. We call the question text or question counter. What do we call it? Counter. Let's see. Counter text. There we go. Then I have question text view. Question view like this. Very good. So here we're going to set up our buttons. I'm going to set on click listener. I'm going to pass this because what I'm going to do is actually make this whole class here implement the on click listener. Okay, so to make things easier. So prev button dot set on click, pass this, and then true button dot set on click, pass this, false button dot set on click, also pass this. Very good. So at this point here, to solve this error here, we have to either cast, or what I'm going to do actually is to make sure that this whole activity here implements the on click. Okay, so okay, and now we have the on click, right? And notice again at the top, now we're implementing the on click listener. That's very good, easier. So here I'm going to put the switch case. I'm going to say v.getID, and our switch case here going to be case R dot, the first thing is going to be ID. I want the prev button. I'm going to say break. That's very important. And then I'm going to say case R dot ID dot next button. I'm going to break. Keep going. Case R dot ID dot true button. I'm going to break. I'm going to continue. False button. I'm also going to break like that. Very good. So prev or previous button here, right? So that would be this button here. What are we going to be doing? Well, we're going to do all the things that we're supposed to do to prev buttons. Very good. So at this point here, we have things set up. Nothing is really happening here. So we need to create certain methods that will handle all of these actions. Again, if you've been following us since the beginning, you will notice that all of the code that I'm going to be writing next is pretty much the same code that we had before, with minor changes, but the essence is the same. So at this point here, when the app first runs, we have our text view. Well, we have a few of our text views, but the most important one at this point is the question that should show here. So it makes sense that the first time that users open our application, we want to make sure that they can see a first question. But how do we do that? Well, we understand that the first thing that runs after we have instantiated our own create and we have instantiated our list here, right? This question get questions or question bank get questions. We have this process finished. So this is, of course, the first place that we're going to be able to actually harness our data and do something with it. Which means I can come down here and say something like this. I can say question. I want question text view dot set text, and I'm going to pass the current question. Because remember, at this point here, I have an array list which contains all of the objects that contains the question and the answer, right? True or false. So how do I probe in and get that question? Because that's what we want to show in here. Well, simply, we're going to say question array list, right? And we know an array list has indexes, right? How do we go and achieve or get our indexes in array list? Well, in arrays, we go like this, right? We have these square brackets, but with array lists, we have a method called get. Notice the get allows us to pass in some sort of index. Well, how do we get the index? Well, we know that we have created the current index, which is at this point at 0 in the beginning, right? Remember this current index? Very well. Yes, everything starts at 0. That means at this point, we're going to go through our array list and get the first question at index 0. So that will be the first array, which will contain something to it. And then once we do that, what is it that we want? Right, we want the get method. So dot get answer. So now here, what we did, we got our object question, that is what it is. And then we say get answer to get the answer of that first question on the first index. Okay, that's all. Let's see if that works. I'm going to save this and refresh. We should see a question showing there if all goes well. And voila, the first question is indeed showing. Very good. So that is working. At this point here, we at least know that the current index is working. We got the first question. However, anything else is not quite working, which is fine, but at least we want to make sure that things are working. So next thing we're going to do is try to figure out how do we then skip to the next question. Okay? I believe that you can do this on your own. So what I want you to do is to pause this video for a little bit and then go and create a method, a function, or just go ahead and create the code inside of our next button that would be here and see if you can make it so that when they click this button here, we are going to go through the next questions. Okay? If that doesn't ring a bell, you can go back to the previous section where we built that application to quiz app and see how that is done. It's very simple, but I want you to do it. All right, so pause the video and do that and come back. All right, so I hope you were able to get that done. So here is the code. I'm going to say, first of all, current index, right? So I'm going to be incrementing. That's the idea. I'm going to say current index. I'm going to add 1, nothing new, but also I'm going to use the percentage sign here because I'm going to make sure that our question list here doesn't give us headache, meaning that we don't end up with out of bound index. Okay. So there we go. This is how we solve that issue. Again, go back to previous videos if you want the full explanation on why this works this way. Very good. So now that we have that, let me close that down there. We need to do something else because at this point here, as we go through, we are making sure that the index indeed changes. But You will notice if you run as it is right now, it's not going to change the actual text, the actual question we want to appear here. To do that, we have to create a update question method. We haven't created that. We will do just now. So I'm going to create a method. It's going to be below there. So this method here, it's going to do what? Well, it's going to go and fetch the data, fetch the object, and update it because we are saying I want to update to the next question. So the first thing I'm going to do inside here, I'm going to create a string, call this question, or question, not questions. I'm going to say question list. So going through our question object again, and I'm going to say get, pass in the current index, and then I'm going to get answer. Very good. So now we have our question here, which will have the text as you saw before. Then I'm going to say question text view. I'm going to set to the question that we just got. Okay, now we have added the actual text for that particular index. That's it. So if I save this now, and we know that we are calling it there, right? We are using the current index. And the beauty here is that it's current question index. So it is indeed a class level instance variable. That's why we're able to use it everywhere. Very good. So now we're going to call update question. It will know that we are inside of next button here, right? Because it's going to increment 1, and then you're going to call update question, which in turn goes ahead and passes in the current question ID, or index I should say, and get the correct question. And of course, once that is done, we are going to update, in this case, the question text view. All right, let's see here. We should be able to hopefully get this to work. All right, so everything is working, but now let's test. Click and voila. And we can keep going. We're getting all of the text, all of the trivia questions there. Oh, very nice. So let's do the same to our back here. How do we do that? Okay, so before we go to the next video again, I want you to write the code that will allow you to get the previous questions, and make sure that we only go back if this question we are at this moment is not the first one. All right, give it a try, and I'll see you in the next video.